You know that familiar routine, right? Pulling up to the petrol pump, filling up the tank. It's something we do all the time. But what if I told you one of the biggest pollution events from your car happens right there, before you even turn the key?
Yeah, that's right. The pollution story doesn't actually start when you hit the road. It starts right at the pump, with a hidden culprit most of us have never even considered.
And this culprit? Well, you can think of it as an invisible cloud. It's a cloud of pollution that forms every single time a car, a scooter, or a truck gets refueled.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, even if you don't realize it. That really distinct, sharp smell of gasoline when you're filling up, that's not just a smell. That's your first clue. That odor is actual physical proof of fuel vapors, invisible gases, escaping from the pump nozzle and your car's tank straight into the air we breathe.
Now, the scientific name for these vapors is volatile organic compounds, or VOCs for short. Volatile just means they evaporate super easily, turning from a liquid into a gas. But here's the thing, they're not just some harmless smell. They contain really dangerous chemicals like benzene, which is a known carcinogen. And when these VOCs get into the air and react with sunlight, they cook up ground-level ozone, which is basically the main ingredient in smog.
Okay, so how big of a deal is this really? I mean, it's easy to dismiss a smell, but when you look at the numbers, they tell a much, much bigger story. Let's put this whole thing into perspective.
Get this. Just from the petrol pumps in the Delhi National Capital Region, we're talking about an estimated 4,000 to 7,000 tons of these VOCs released every single year. Let that sink in for a second. Thousands of tons of smog-forming, health-damaging chemicals.
But here's where it gets really interesting. When you look at a city's total pollution, the whole pie, so to speak, petrol pumps account for less than 1%. I mean, they're completely dwarfed by huge sources like industry and vehicle exhaust. So you might be asking, why does this tiny little fraction even matter?
It matters because this isn't a story about the citywide percentage. This is a story about localized risk. That small number hides a very dangerous reality. The threat isn't spread out evenly. It's concentrated in dangerous hotspots.
And this brings us right to the heart of the problem, the local danger zone. We need to stop looking at those big citywide averages and zoom right in on the air people are breathing right next to these petrol pumps.
Okay, look at this comparison. On an average day, the air in a city might have about 1 to 3 micrograms of benzene per cubic meter. But if you're standing near a petrol pump, that concentration skyrockets to between 10 and 50. That is a massive, localized spike in your exposure to a chemical that we know causes cancer.
And this isn't just an abstract risk. It has very real health impacts. Benzene exposure is directly linked to an increased risk of leukemia. So for the pump attendants who work there every day and for the people who live right next door, their daily exposure is 5 to 10 times higher than for the average person. And it's not just about cancer risk. Remember, those VOCs also form ozone, which makes respiratory problems like asthma so much worse for everyone in the area.
Now, that sounds pretty grim, I know. But here is the good news. This is absolutely a solvable problem. The technology and the policies to fight back against these invisible clouds, they already exist. So let's talk about what they are. The path forward is actually pretty clear. You can really break it down into 3 key steps. First, we need to enforce the use of vapor recovery systems at the pump. Second, we've got to speed up the shift to electric vehicles. And third, we have to make sure all of this is lined up with our bigger clean air goals.
And check out how incredibly effective these solutions are. Those vapor recovery systems, which are basically just little vacuums on the fuel nozzle that suck the fumes back in, can cut VOC emissions by up to 80%. At the same time, cleaner fuels have already cut the amount of benzene by half. And of course, the ultimate game changer is electric vehicles. They just eliminate this problem, 100%, gone. And you know, the really great news is that progress is already happening. Since 2018, these specific emissions have actually dropped by 20 to 30%, thanks to some of these exact measures. But, and this is a big but, the challenge isn't over. As cities grow and more cars hit the roads, we have to have consistent enforcement of these rules. It's absolutely critical to make sure we don't lose the progress we've made.
So, we end on this question. The technology is here. The policies are known. This invisible cloud of pollution at the petrol pump doesn't have to be a permanent part of our lives. The real question now is about implementation and will. It's something to think about the next time you smell that familiar scent of gasoline.